Former White House counsel Don McGahn had a stark warning for the president. Demand an investigation into Hillary Clinton and Comey, and you could get impeached as a result. As we've been saying tonight, the Washington Post says that warning was spelled out in a memo. McGahn has spent dozens of hours talking to the special counsel. There's a very good chance Mueller has seen or has the memo or both. So what happens now? With us to talk about it, two men who worked with and for Robert Mueller, two former senior managers at the Bureau, Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, and Chuck Rosenberg, former U.S. Attorney and also a former senior FBI official. Chuck, we'll begin with you, home field advantage here in New York. Safe to assume Robert Mueller has this memo, has had this memo, has had knowledge of this incident for a good long while.
Absolutely, Brian. If he doesn't have the memo, he'll have it now. And if he did, and frankly, what he really needs are the recollections of the people who wrote the memo or were there for the conversation. Right? The memo is corroborative, but what's really important are the people who spoke to the president, got his direction, understood what he intended to do, and wrote that stuff down. That's the real evidence. And we know McGahn, for instance, has been meeting with special counsel for many, many hours. That's what matters.
Frank, this is another instance of Don McGahn as one of the human guardrails around the president. Does this article also kind of out Mr. Whitaker as a potential witness? You've got the president coming to the chief of staff at the Justice Department under Sessions saying, in effect, hey, how are we doing on that investigation of Hillary?
Yeah, there's no question now in my mind that at some point Mr. Whitaker is going to find himself either testifying before Congress as to what transpired, who asked what, when, what was the tone, what was the intention that he inferred, or he's going to find himself being interviewed, if he hasn't already, by a member of the special counsel team. He has essentially made himself a fact witness by even engaging in these types of discussion. And if the reporting is accurate, Brian, that essentially the president went around the Attorney General of the United States to his chief of staff and made inquiries about investigating political enemies, then, look, we've got even clearer evidence that the president is not intending to use proper channels, but rather to use political allies to go after his enemies.
Chuck, how much does it worry you and your long-established love of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to learn that the president is sideways right now with the director of the FBI, despite the fact that directors are hired for 10-year terms?
It's not a good thing, but it's also not an unusual thing. Directors of the FBI have gotten sideways with the White House because their job, obeying the rule of law, pursuing evidence and facts, sometimes doesn't mesh with the political imperatives of the President of the United States. So, does it worry me? Not that much. Is it a good thing? It's part of the normal and natural tension that you might expect. What worries me, though, is that we have a president who is particularly opposed to the rule of law, who's particularly savage in his remarks about the men and women of the FBI, of law enforcement, of the military, of the intelligence community. That's what worries me. That's what's really, truly abnormal here.
Is this the first time in our lifetimes, Chuck, that you've had a president who've used them as kind of all in service to him?
Seems to me. I mean, I need to talk to really smart historians to find out. I mean,
you and me both.
Right, to find out what sort of the long view of this is, Brian. But in my memory, in my time at the Department of Justice, in my time at the FBI, yes.
Frank, we're going to try at some point here this week to allow our viewers to step away and perhaps do something as shocking as enjoy Thanksgiving with their families. But as we contemplate that, what are you looking for? We've been promised more documents in the Manafort matter. Are you still on a hair trigger this close to the Thanksgiving holiday that we could get something at any moment?
I think that's quite possible. Now that we've seen the president turn in his written answers, we're getting closer to the end. It's still a mystery as to where that end lies. I'll say this, though, Brian, as we continue to get new reporting of what's transpired and the president's own conduct it's ironic that as much as he wants this to end fast, his own conduct could be keeping this going. And, Mueller could be exploring further evidence of obstruction. The whole issue of obstruction is kind of a gray area right now in most of our minds about what's being pursued and what's not. So short answer, we're closer to the end. Could we see further indictments as soon as this week? Yes, indeed. But that necessarily won't be the end. I think we're much closer than we've been. We need to stay tuned to what's happening. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see something slipped in on like a Friday after Thanksgiving, because Mueller's team just continues to work at it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.